What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another fantastic Friday here on the Exploding Dice channel. My name is Askren, and I am your host. And this is not. I know what you're saying. You're saying, Askren, what are you doing on a Friday? You don't stream on a Friday. This is wrong. But rest assured, everything is fine. I am hanging out today with my friend and actually streaming legend here on the channel for the first time.
Streaming legend, come on. Now.
Legend, icon. I don't know. How do you prefer to be referred?
I'm just a normal dude, man. There's no legend or icon or anything like that. I'm just a normal guy.
Well, I'm hanging out with Mr. JP McDaniel from Roleplay. How is it going, my friend?
It's going well, man. I'm happy to be grounded here after an adventurous weekend last week at PAX and all that stuff. So it's good to be not traveling once again.
Yes, guys. Sorry, I see that his volume was low. I turned it up. It is all fine now. I'm super sorry about that. We were just commenting on how every time there's something that goes wrong. It's too many buttons and levers, and you always push the wrong one.
I'll be real honest too. It's so nice to not be the one to have to worry about that right now. I'm just kind of like, oh, the audio's low. I guess I'll just kind of hang out.
It's so weird whenever I'm on a show that I'm not like running production or DMing or both. I'm just sitting there being like, what do I do with all this time?
Yeah, no, I get that. It's been a long time since I've been on something like this where I haven't run it before. So yeah, it feels pretty good.
Audio is...
I can turn myself up too if that's an issue. That's not a big deal. You just let me know.
Yeah, people are saying the audio is jumpy, but I don't know where that's coming from. I'm trying to sort it out, but I've never heard. You're hearing some peaking, lagging. What the hell is what is all this? What are we having issues? I don't even know.
Is that a Yeti?
This is a
microphone?
Yeti. Yeah, this is a.
Try the USB on the back of it and plug it back in. I might get rid of the stuttering.
Oh yeah, I sometimes I hit the the reboot for that. Let's see. I don't know. This might. All right. Are we good? We all right now?
That fixed it.
Sweet. All right. Tech issues solved. If this was my old Ankbot, I would press a command that said, "Here on the Exploding Dice channel, we're only the most professional, and nothing ever goes wrong." So now that we have all the tech issues hopefully out of the way, as you know, we won't have to deal with those. Man, why don't we just let's talk about you a little bit first. Tell me a little bit about yourself. You are the creator of Roleplay, but who is JP? Like, who's JP really?
I'm a dude that worked in esports when I was in college, getting my degree in journalism, and kind of started streaming alongside then as just kind of a hobby. I worked for a company called Major League Gaming, which eventually got bought by Blizzard the past year or so, maybe about a year ago. But yeah, I left them 2013 and started playing tabletop games for the first time, really. I played a little bit when I was in high school. I played like a game or two, but I never really revisited them till me and a bunch of friends were just bored and decided, hey, we should play some tabletop games, and we went from there. Before we did roleplay, the first show I ever did was a podcast called Arena Cast, which was a WoW PvP centric show. So we kind of did like the esports side of WoW PvP, and that ended up getting my foot in the door at MLG. Then I guess one of the shows that I'm more known for is a show called State of the Game, which was a StarCraft 2 show. It's kind of where I got into casting, like shoutcasting, commentating StarCraft 2 matches, and working for MLG is kind of their... I forgot what my actual title was. I think it was like StarCraft 2 show host and head producer or something like that. They were based out of New York. And then once I left them, did roleplay. We did a show called Drop Frames about 2 years ago, and kind of just keep creating shows and keep doing content like that. It's been a fun ride for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, there's a lot of the sort of the creation of and the inception of role playing stuff that I want to talk about in just a little bit. But before we get into all of that and the show, I just want to introduce thank you everyone who's hanging out. Thank you guys for joining us. Just a couple quick announcements about this channel and how we're gonna do things today. First of all, guys, Dice Thulu has the retweet link in chat, so if you have not already, go ahead and hit that retweet link. Tell all your friends that you're hanging out with us and having a good time. Second of all, for the show, the way we do things is the first hour or so, we're just gonna be shooting the breeze and talking about some stuff and whatever, talking gaming and things like that. We will have a live Q&A, so if you guys have any questions or topics that you want to give to us, that you want us to discuss, keep them in your head or write them down if you want for the second half of the show, and we'll try and get to as many as we can in the second half of the show. Second, just a couple announcements about what is going on. First and foremost, we usually have a monthly giveaway, but right now we have 2 giveaways going on. The first, if you want to get involved in that, we are giving away an awesome Pathfinder prize pack for the Pathfinder role-playing game. You got yourself a core rulebook, you got yourself an adventuring guide, you got yourself a bestiary box of all those awesome high-quality paper minis, and I just threw in a bunch of those HD WizKids, like high-definition minis, like resin minis for you guys. So go hit, the link is all there. If you're already following on Twitch and Twitter, then you already have entries, so make sure you go claim them. The other thing, you should be able to find it on Twitter. We are giving away one of these bad boys a copy of Xanthar's Guide, because I
got mine in the mail today as well, man.
I got like 4 in the mail, so I'm like, and they gave me one at the Brooklyn show at PAX. So have you read it yet?
No, I got it this afternoon. I was browsing through the different classes, but I haven't really read it in depth yet. It's pretty cool though. I'm pretty interested in reading this sometime next week.
It is. I'm super bummed that I couldn't get a special edition because my local hobby store got 4 copies.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But you guys, I have a bunch for you, so if you want to get yourself a copy of Xanthar's, there's a tweet on my Twitter. All you got to do is retweet it and share it with your friends, and you can win a copy of Xanthar's. It's right over there. That's pretty much it. The only other thing is, I'll talk a little bit about some of the shows and some of the stuff we have going on later on in the show, but that's about it for now. So actually, Jay, because you were talking a little bit about your inception. I mean, were you like did you hit role-playing games like hard before you got into doing it on Twitch, or was it just kind of a
the first like actual game, well, that's not true. I had one night, probably like an hour and a half, where I played, I think, 3rd edition when I was in high school, when I was like a junior or so in high school with my my brother and his coworkers, from GameStop, or not GameStop, rather GameWorks. It was like an arcade where he worked at, and that was kind of the first time I had played. But it was just hard to get into. I wasn't really super friends with, or super good friends with anyone there except for my brother. So I think that's kind of an entry or a thing that you got to think about when you jump into some of those games. If you can't have like a normal, casual friendship with those people, you're not going to have a fun time role playing with them. So yeah. The first time really that we ever jumped into actually playing role playing games, D&D specifically, was back in February of 2013 for sure.
Really? And so, because I saw that you, obviously you had on the roleplay site for a while, like, you just kind of reaching out on Twitter, asking if anyone, like, knew how to play D&D online. Right. Which, the reason I found that funny is because before Roll20 really hit the scene, like, that was what I was doing. It's like me and a bunch of people were just like, how do we play D&D online? I guess we try IRC, we try Fantasy Grounds, map tools. Like, none of it really did the thing,
Yeah. Roll20. So the first ever episode of Roleplay, you can go back and watch the VOD. We're just using like the official WotC dice roller thing, where it has like the list of different die there, and you can just click roll. and I rolled die for the entire cast as well as the DM when it came to that stuff. But I think it was either the second episode, it might have been the third episode. Neil, who was our first DM for the show, ended up suggesting Roll20, and that's kind of where that got started from. We've been using it since. But yeah, in terms of like tweeting it out, it was me, Jeff and Control Robinson, Genevieve, Live in Pink, Forget. She's French. I completely butchered the name. I apologize. and Ryan Ryzella Moore, who were all just kind of friends, and tweeted it out and said, "Hey, if anyone knows how to DM, we're doing a show." And at that time, State of the Game was my StarCraft 2 podcast, which was kind of in its prime, I guess you could say. And so it was kind of a splitter audience from that. Back in the day, we were getting around, I think viewership-wise, around like 10 to 15K, depending on episodes for State of the Game. So it's split off into roleplay stuff. And Neil responded on Twitter. He ran a site called st2ratings.com where they hosted StarCraft 2 replays. So he was kind of already in that world as well. And that's kind of the history of how that all started for sure.
So because I wasn't really even on Twitch or I wasn't really listening to like D&D related podcasts or anything back then. Was there anyone else like doing it at the time, or are you guys like essentially the first people to really try doing D&D on Twitch?
I don't really know. I mean, there was like Acquisitions Incorporated was a thing, and they had their YouTube VODs back then, and that was kind of where we decided, maybe where I decided, I guess maybe we can turn this into a show. Was with Jerry and Chris Perkins and all them doing their thing. But I'm trying to think if there was anyone else that was doing. I'm sure there was. Like, we weren't the first people to do it by any stretch of the imagination, but maybe like the first ones to do it with actual viewership. Because I honestly cannot recall what was going on back then. But that's just because it wasn't a business to me, right? It wasn't a full-time job, or it was, but I didn't take as much time to kind of study the field, as it were, like I do now, where I can kind of just rattle off numbers for a bunch of different shows, just because I kind of know the landscape a little bit better. Back then, I have no idea. It was kind of nice being the only show in town in that regard. But at the same time, you had to combat the whole like. We got front paged a lot back then just because of my connections with Twitch. And you had to combat the whole, like, what is this? This is really, really nerdy. Like, why is this being streamed? Twitch is a game or a website for streaming video games, not tabletop games, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I think that over time has definitely gotten a lot more acceptable on the platform.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been so, like, I've been hugely interested in watching not just sort of the explosion in popularity, but also Twitch actually making efforts to support the tabletop game segment, right? Yeah. Because like I don't know much about Twitch outside of the tabletop game segment, but I think it's one of the best communities, the best groups of people that I've seen on the internet. Yeah,
it definitely can be. I think every once in a while there's obviously. Every community has kind of like its bad eggs, right? But they get weeded out pretty quick, especially on Twitch. So it is definitely a cool community to be a part of. There's no doubt about that.
So you've I guess you've been doing this for a while. You've played a ton of games and a ton of characters in the different games. I guess what's like, do you have any do you have a favorite? Do you find a place where you kind of land on the roleplay spectrum? Like, are you still a D&D guy, or have you kind of fallen for any of the systems that you've done either in shorter term or as experiments?
Sure. I think right now I got asked this question earlier, and I think right now my favorite system is definitely 5e. But it's kind of it's a tailor-made 5e where. It is 5e in itself is kind of a combat simulator, right? But I think what the nice thing about having Adam Coble, our GM, our head GM over at Roleplay, is that he is such a narrative-focused type DM, and so he kind of blends that in with it. I think if it was just straight up like 5e where it was only combat all the time, it probably wouldn't be my favorite. But that's not to say I don't love a lot of the other indie stuff. I got to mention Dungeon World, Adam's game. I think that's a great place to start for people that have never jumped into any tabletop at all, and it's really easy to understand. I enjoy stuff like Apocalypse World. That was a lot of fun to play.
I'm trying to remember. Did you guys do a mouse guard? I seem to remember you doing a mouse guard show.
We did a mouse guard show, but that was one of the ones where I wasn't a part of it.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't have too much familiarity with it. But my understanding is it's kind of like Burning Wheel Light. So
it is it's a I mean it's Burning Wheel with a few tweaks to it. So if you know Burning Wheel, you understand like how the system plays out. But I don't know, like I haven't played much Burning Wheel, but I started playing Mouse Guard recently, and I just kind of fell in love with everything about it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty important that content creators like yourself and every other one that kind of runs a show make it known that like D&D is not
right
like tabletop in that sense. Like there are other games out there that are better suited for different things. And I think that's super important kind of as we move forward is WotC kind of starts to control the Twitch space a little bit more, that the shows do exist and that people see that there's other stuff besides just D&D out there for sure.
Right. That's actually that actually brings me to something really interesting. One of our longtime viewers, he's our like resident old curmudgeon. Anytime I do a talk show, he brings up the fact that essentially the Twitch category for tabletop role-playing games is Dungeons and Dragons, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that because of like the colloquialism of the name, but I guess some people are not super happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely reason to be upset about that, but the other kind of side of the coin is if you stream into the like some games, like I think you can do Shadowrun. I think has its own game.
Right, I think Pathfinder does. I know Roll20 has a tag that they insist on using for some reason.
Yeah, Roll20's got one. I think that's just for brand awareness. And they got it added in because a lot of people do play Roll20 stuff. But yeah, I've always kind of bitched at Twitch to add in that section. But whatever. At the end of the day, the more exposure we get just on tabletop games, the better. Whatever the quote is, like rising tides are better for all ships or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Is good, but it is nice to kind of see some of those other RPGs get a little bit of exposure. At the same time, the only people really pushing the initiative and understanding what Twitch is WotC, right?
Seems to be D&D. Like because they're engaging. There's not really any other, I guess, companies that have. They're the only ones really with the leverage in the industry right now, right? Like not many other companies, maybe Paizo, but no other company could really leverage the influence to get much changed.
I think leverage is definitely one way to kind of look at it. Another one is they just don't know what Twitch is. We've reached out to a lot of companies for when we run some of these not unknown games, but some of these lesser known tabletop games. They're like, oh yeah, cool, sure. Congratulations on running the system. What is Twitch?
Right.
And they just don't understand, the marketing arm that is kind of live streaming. And I think WotC, for the longest time, didn't give. Can I curse? Do you care?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Go for it.
They didn't give a fuck.
There's actually a curse minimum on this show.
Okay, good. They didn't give a fuck about Twitch for the longest time until Critical Role kind of
right. Absolutely.
Map. And they started seeing how much money that show generates and tried to loop their wagon to that whole thing, and they successfully have done so. And so I think once people start to see that and some of these other indie dev companies, they're going to start to see a lot of people start doing stuff like that for sure.
Yeah, I forget. I definitely talked very briefly with Adam about this, but we talk me and a bunch of the smaller content creators in the roleplay community talk about this stuff a lot, and one of the things we were talking about was just how weird it is that like these companies just have no concept, not even of just what like promoting your product on Twitch is, but like just engaging with streamers, right? Like if you go to them and say like, "Hey, I'm running your game right now," that's like most of them won't even answer, right? They won't even be like.
And
okay.
The other side of the coin there as well is even if you do work with a publisher or with some of these other publishers, there's not much and even WotC, to be completely blunt, like they don't really do much for the people that are on their platform, in terms of like streaming on /D&D. Sure, they can give away, like rule books and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, that's not going to drive like too much traffic. And so like if WotC's having a little bit of issue with that, then some of these other much smaller companies, a lot of the solo, they're probably solo run organizations. Like I'm not sure what they can really benefit to in terms of promoting on there. It's got to be some sort of like symbiotic relationship where either they come on and run the game, which is something we kind of did with John with Blades in the Dark,
right.
Where he was on running his game. I think that's probably like the next step for a lot of those organizations to go for sure.
Right. I actually was had John on this show right before he started doing the show with you guys. So he was like I knew it, and then all of a sudden he blew up because of the roleplay show, and I'm like, it's good. Good. It's a good system. It's like, but I think that
the system's awesome for sure.
I think that's like that is you're right in the sense that like I think the right creators have the power to sort of elevate the right products. But it kind of requires both people to be a part of it.
Right. I think when we ran, another good example is when we ran, not Tales from the Dark, Tales from the Loop. Yeah, the creator of that was on Twitter and kind of talking about it and stuff like that, and that's always cool to see. But there wasn't really any real relationship outside of like, oh, cool, these guys are running my game. Go check it out if you want. And that's always, I think that's a good step initially. If we were going to turn that into like a full-fledged show, we would probably decide to work with that guy a little bit more in whatever capacity he was willing to.
So, I don't know, man. Aside from kind of doing your thing and kind of building one of the bigger, I guess, brands in the role play space, like what do you see, like what are you looking to do, or what do you see for, I guess, the role play space in Twitch in general? Like, are you guys trying to be a part of it, or have you guys become kind of your own entity in that regard?
Are you referring to in terms of kind of like what WotC's doing on their channel, or just in at large?
Yeah, I mean, in general, like, do you, I guess, it's a weird way of phrasing it, because I love that the new, like, that role play on Twitch is flourishing, and I was super, super excited back when they were doing, like, their own, they were trying to push the tabletop space on the front page. Like, are you guys actively involved? Like, are you guys actively involved in trying to sort of increase the tabletop presence on Twitch?
I mean, yes and no. I think the ways that we are just kind of by doing our own thing. One of the nice things that I've always enjoyed is a streamer, and that's kind of where it comes from. As a streamer, is we kind of run things how we want to, and so that's not necessarily, we don't have anyone that we have to answer to at the end of the day. So it's not, if we don't do a show that week, really the people that we answer to are our viewers, right? It's not like there's a company above us. There's not a Legendary Pictures or anything that's like, you didn't do a show this week, we didn't get those minutes watched, blah blah blah. And we kind of like that idea. But yeah, at the end of the day, growing the space as much as possible is definitely better for all involved. And I think the best way for us to do something like that is just to simply do the show and work on being as consistent as much as possible. We do things like with our Patreon, which funds a lot of our live shows, where we're all in person. That stuff's a lot of fun. I think that's kind of the next elevation, as it were, for roleplay as a brand. But getting people to live in one city or flying in people every single month is both costly and a lot to ask of everyone. So I don't know if that'll ever happen. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, we get front paged pretty much every show we do, which is a nice thing that Twitch does for us, and we definitely promote what game we're playing, and we have rule sets to everyone that's on the show, and we're not afraid of linking or talking about other shows as well out there. Adam does a bunch of stuff on Roll20 on their platform, on their channel, that is. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, if everyone kind of promotes everyone else, it doesn't turn into like this, where a lot of industries when they're kind of starting to boom a little bit. It gets a little high schoolish where people start to draw lines. Well, I'm with this clique, and they don't necessarily want to work. As long as we don't go down that route, which I think it's kind of starting, then we're good. But if it gets down that path, I don't think anyone really wins there. And so I hope a year from now those lines aren't drawn in the sand. I hope that kind of gets washed away at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most interesting things that I've seen is like, you're right in the sense that I guess it sometimes gets there, especially when you start bringing in people from outside, like the roleplay community, right? Like, I think streamers are kind of naturally divided by like games and teams and companies and this and that, right?
Right.
So like when you bring them into the roleplay community, things start getting a little insular, which I love. Me and a bunch of like my friends, we all try to talk behind the scenes and help and share as much as we can, because I think I think it's best when the community is healthy for everyone, right? Like no one should be sort of pushed out. But you were talking about the live shows, which I've caught a couple, and they're a lot of fun. They're really like really high production value stuff. It's really good. Have you caught the stuff that Geek and Sundry is doing right now? I was just talking to recently to Ivan about the Dread shows that he's doing.
Is that's like the horror stuff?
The giant Jenga tower, yeah.
Okay, not necessarily. A lot of the times, our shows are at night, right when theirs are most of the time. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not doing roleplay stuff, I'm just streaming my own, just Overwatch, whatever it happens to be for that week, or drop frames, etc. So I haven't really gone back and watched a lot of their VODs. I'm aware,
right.
Geek and Sundry is giant. They have enormous amounts of funding. And so I would hope that they are doing really cool stuff, and it sounds like from what you were just describing, they are. So it's awesome to see that stuff for sure.
I wasn't even specifically referring to like whether you sat down and like watched the shows or not. Specifically the reason I brought it up is because for the Dread show, like they're kind of Ivan, at least, he told me that he's trying to sort of bridge the gap between like that kind of live show thing, like you guys do, where everyone's in the same place playing a role-playing game together, and also like a highly edited and produced sort of television show like thing to kind of like bridge the gap between like the tabletop and then maybe like the Netflix shows or something. Do you guys like, is that do you guys, or do you as a person see that as an evolution of role-playing games, or are you skeptical there?
I mean, numbers wise, I think if you look at kind of what going down the edited route, I think Force Grey is probably the one that's kind of out there doing that the most. And I think just number wise, it doesn't do as well as if that was just a not edited show, just kind of like live, once a week for a set amount of time. The weirdest thing for the longest time, DJ Weed, a good friend of mine, works at Twitch. I think he's the head of their programming. He's been a shoutcaster with me, and we've casted together and all that stuff. And something he said a long time ago to me was, if it's not live, then why the fuck are you doing it, right? And that's kind of always been with me for the longest time. There's just something about being live and having a live chat, just like being live on a stage and having a live audience. I think edited stuff definitely has its place. Mm-hmm. I just don't know if it's the right time to kind of go down that path and start to splinter audiences. I think it could work. I'm not saying it doesn't work. But for my interest, and I think for Roleplay's interest, we'll probably always be live. It's just kind of like what I know. It's the way I've always done it.
Right.
And to be honest, like editing that stuff is a lot of work.
It is. Yeah, it's the reason I don't do a podcast. It's just or YouTube
editing stuff is a skill in itself, a skill which I don't have, which is maybe why I'm saying all of the things I am. But yeah, I've always just kind of been, if it's gonna be on Twitch, like just stream it live. There's no place for, if it's gonna be edited, keep it on YouTube or keep it on Vimeo or something like that.
You bring up a really interesting point, because like about the Force Grey stuff. Like, I like the show. I like all the people on it. I'm super surprised that with like essentially Hollywood celebrities, that show is not bigger than it is.
Right, and that's also a little bit weird too when it comes to like promoting that stuff, right? Because the average Twitch user doesn't really care too much about, like, a good example is like Snoop Dogg streamed on Twitch once, and that was kind of cool, right? People are like, oh, it's Snoop Dogg, let's go watch his stream and see what it's like. T-Pain, another good example, streamed on Twitch. But once they kind of see it for the first time and start to realize,
novelty.
Yeah, it loses the novelty, and they realize, oh, that guy's just a normal dude. Like that, he's just playing video games just like everyone else. He's not actually. Maybe he is entertaining, but he's not. He's not a lyric, or he's not a Shroud. He doesn't have the skill of a Shroud, or the entertainment and production levels of a Dr. Disrespect. They usually have a webcam in front of them and maybe a mic of some sort, but it's not the level of a lot of these other big streamers. Kind of a weird analogy because the Force Grey stuff is very well edited. It's very well produced. All of their equipment is top notch, but it's already kind of a hurdle to get people involved to begin with. I think with D&D content on Twitch. So any other barriers where it's like as soon as people see it's edited, they probably will just tune out and just wait for a VOD because you can experience that stuff with a live audience, but it's not live content, so it's kind of not the same. It's a weird distinction for whatever reason. People have a hard time getting over that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do think, like, for example, I think the reason that Critical Role blew up was not just because it had a great cast, but because everyone was there sort of experiencing it at the same time.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of factors, really, like Critical Role blew up, I think, Legendary Pictures behind the scenes obviously has a huge amount of publicity that they can throw at that with all the different arms promoting on social media. Getting them all the different interviews and all the big places there. Getting Vin Diesel on the show, that's going to get a shit ton of eyes on it to begin with. I mean, Vin Diesel's massive. I'm sure they retained a lot of viewership from that.
By the way, Vin Diesel, if you're watching, I do this show every Tuesday. And
yeah. And the other, honestly, the biggest thing is, think about how many times they've missed a show on Thursday. Like, they've been live for pretty much 2.5 years or however long they've been around. Every single Thursday, and that makes a lot of difference. That's a big thing for sure, and I think once you couple all that with the fact that those are studio trained, or not studio, but like theater trained actors. They're voice actors also. They know what they're doing and they know how to role play stuff. And once you start to kind of bring that into the forefront, of course people are going to be drawn to that. There's no doubt about it. They're super talented at what they do, without a doubt.
Yeah, I definitely I don't know, like I think Critical Role has been such an interesting thing for the landscape of role-playing games on Twitch, mostly because in the same breath that I hear everyone praising it, I also hear so many people and I don't agree, but talking about how it sets it sets standards, or it discourages people from watching other streams, or it does if they're stream I know personally for the longest time I wouldn't even stream on Thursday because it's why even bother, right?
Yeah, I mean there's no reason in going up against them. That's just a lost cause. We've kind of marked off Thursday nights as just we don't stream shows at all because it would be pointless. They also go late enough to where you can't really catch the fall off of their show unless you're streaming at 2 or 3 a.m., which is a terrible start time to begin with.
Right.
Unless you want a early morning audience in Europe. But yeah, I think that's just kind of no one's going to try and compete with them. I think Jerry Tycho was pretty smart, kind of being the lead into show for the most part with C Team on Thursdays, and they found a lot of success there just because they're great at what they do to begin with. And I think there's kind of a cool relationship or bleed over between that audience and Critical Role's audience.
And then if you're Wizards, you can steal my Tuesday and do a show before me.
Yeah. Tuesday. I mean, Wizards kind of all over the place. You don't. It's hard to not schedule over them at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, I don't even bother because they just cover the spread at this point. But they just happened to start doing dice camera action after I started my talk show. So
yeah, I feel like there's an executive somewhere at WotC that was just get as much minutes watched as possible on this platform because that's the big metric for a lot of these companies, and that's what Greg and I think Nathan have done. They have a lot of content every single week on that platform for sure. I'm not sure if it benefits the people on it too much, but if it gets them kind of a boost every single week in some places, then maybe it does. We're not on there, so I can't really speak to exactly what effects would that has on a lot of the stuff. Only just kind of what I see.
So let's switch gears. We talked a lot about like the business side of things. That's fine, but let's talk a little bit about something else. I mean, I know you're a crazy busy streamer or something, but do you get a chance to do any like off stream gaming at all? Like,
in terms of like tabletop gaming,
board gaming, tabletop gaming, whatever.
No, anything. It's kind of a crappy thing, but any actual games, whether they're tabletop or video games or anything that's a thing that can be streamed on Twitch, I just stream it. So, when I turn off the stream, I'm either going to watch movies or going to watch TV or just getting away from the computer. I don't have like a home game, so to speak. I don't run games or anything off stream, which, I think if the one time we did run a game that was not streamed was in we all took a vacation up to Colorado's. Me, Adam, Dodger, Strippin, Dodger's husband, Ann, Aurelian. There were a couple other people there. Gas Mexican was there, and we played like a 1E dungeon thing that or D&D thing that Adam had brought. And honestly, I was I don't know if I was just tired and on the mood or what, but I did not enjoy it whatsoever. I think I get addicted to like people in chat. I get addicted to kind of like being in the spotlight in a sense, where if I'm not, I don't find interest in it. Yeah, I think a lot of streamers are that way.
I wouldn't say, like, for me it's not the spotlight thing, because honestly, like, if I'm like I'm horrible at being on camera alone. I'm like the most awkward person. But DMing and streaming, like, there's a lot of stuff that you got to think about. And so, like I said before, as anytime I don't have all those things when I'm just a player, and it's like you don't have to think about the streaming and the chat and the this and the that. You don't have to think about the pace and the DMing and the rules. Like, I just sit there and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, someone is talking to me. I'm like, wait, what? Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird. I'm the worst player when I'm away from the stream.
Yeah. I think a lot of that has to do with just like our generation has so many, we're stimulated by Twitter, social media, chat, that like I have 6 monitors for fuck's sake. Like I have a stream open right now. I have both chats on my channel and your chat. I have you full screened and I've got Twitter over here, and I'm doing them all at the same time. And it says a lot that, like, can I even be focused on one thing in that? Probably not. But that's just kind of like our generation. It's only getting worse too when kids a little bit younger than us are growing up. I can't even imagine what that's going to be like.
I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at how funny it is, the thought of me being full screen. Like, why would you do that?
I mean, I don't know. That's if I'm looking like this, if you see me looking this direction, that means I'm looking at you. If it's over here, we're over in Chatland. That's just how it is. Like, you're in the spot where when we usually do shows in the production of role play, you're where the normal cams go for everyone.
Right,
so.
Right. No,
it's just a natural place for me to look.
I just pictured it, and it was really funny to me. Like,
yeah.
I don't even have desks. I need to get more desk space for more monitors, man.
Yeah, it helps. It helps. But yeah, to go back to your original question, no, I don't play any games off stream. I've thought about it, but if I create a character or a funny moment happens, the idea of like, oh fuck, man, there's not a clip of that I can go back and watch, right? Like, it's kind of a weird thing to think about, but there's probably like 40% of my life the past 10 years is on the internet that I can go watch. Which is kind of bizarre, but it's just kind of that's the nature of the industry.
And we're just gonna be old men, like, talking about how much there of us is on the internet. Like,
oh yeah.
We retired. It's just, what do I do now?
Someone once made a like a time lapse over the course of, I forget which show specifically it was, but kind of like the main screen on all the role plays is the 5 cameras and with like the role play in the center.
Yeah.
And they took the first like 2 seconds of every episode and spliced it together in like a time lapse. And it was really weird, like seeing everyone's like hair grow out and then shave and beards grow out, blah, blah, blah. That stuff's kind of weird, but it's kind of it's what we do as a job. It's going to be a thing for sure.
Just retire and then do a supercut of your entire career.
Yeah. Man, it's going to be weird.
It's like an hour and a half.
It's gonna be so weird. Like I have a hard time explaining to people what I do already, right?
Right?
And when I get older, they're gonna be like, "So what'd you do for a living?" Played video games, and I hope that's like, "Oh, okay, you did the Twitch stuff," not like, "What the like, what do you mean you played video games?" That's such a weird thing for sure.
I
But
I tried to. I'm like sitting at the barber the other day, and he's like, "So what do you got? What do you got? What are you gonna do later today?" And I'm like, "Should I actually try and explain to this guy what I do? Like this
yeah,
this
most of the
complete
time I don't.
normal dude? Like, am I supposed to explain
Yeah.
to him how I produce D&D on the internet?"
Most of the time I don't, especially if I'm flying and stuff like that. I just don't want to talk to people because
Right.
I'm antisocial in that way. I'll just lie and be like, "Oh yeah, I do TV production or something like that." I'll just, but yeah.
Um. So you say you don't get a chance to do a lot of gaming off stream, or you don't I guess by choice, but are there any games that you really want, like what kind of, I said you were talking about 5e as your thing. Have you gotten into, like, have you DM'd yourself, or have you like gotten into creating your own stuff, or are you just a player full time?
We've I would say I'm a player full time. I've DM'd like a weird 2e homebrew thing originally on a show called Eben, and then Roleplay Eben, and then that got turned into Roleplay Vigil, which is when we rebooted it, when I started using Dungeon World, expecting that system to be a little bit easier. And a couple, like 3 or 4 months ago, we had planned, and I had kind of assembled a crew and pretty much had everything done for the show. Graphics, a name, people were scheduled to be there, etc. It was announced. And I ended up pulling the show at the last second. Because that was like the fourth or fifth one shot for that month. And then people were coming back from vacation, so we had to get back into the swing of stuff. I don't know. I think DMing would be fun. A part of one of my faults, I think, is that I am a perfectionist. So if something goes poorly in a show that I'm DMing, I'd probably beat myself up about it pretty bad. And I think that as someone who's so kind of like clued into viewership on Twitch and kind of numbers and stuff like that, all that stuff would just fuck with my head way too much if I was DMing, and I'd start to think like, oh man, maybe that encounter sucked and people didn't actually enjoy it, and it's just kind of a weird thing, kind of getting over that. So I think one day it might happen, at least a one shot. And if I do, it'll be 5e without a doubt. Only because I know that system kind of in and out now. I've played so many characters on Court of Swords specifically that if I do DM, it's going to be 5e. It's just it's more now. It's more a question of when, not if. I just don't know when that's going to happen. Probably 2018.
I'm with you about the perfectionist thing. Like, I used to be, I've been like, I guess I was forced to accept things and become lazier over time. Like, the more, because I don't right now, but I used to work full time and get home at like 8 o'clock and then stream, and it's like, when you're working and then doing shows, you don't have a lot of time to write and prep and do all that stuff. So you kind of have to accept more improv and less perfection.
Right. And I think, I don't know, maybe it was Colville that told me this, but he said something to the effect of, if you're a new DM, play with players that are new to the game.
Yeah.
Not necessarily people that are veterans. But I don't know if I agreed with that. We had people when I did Eben, and they weren't, only one of those players was new, and he was the type of player that he's like, I watched Dragon Ball Z, so I want to punch this guy after like powering up. Right. It's like, all right, you can punch him, I guess. Roll a d20, and then of course he crits it. So I had him, explain the situation. But I think that I don't know. I think as a DM, I would get really turned off if my players kind of treated the game in a way that I wasn't interested in running it, if that makes sense. Like, if I'm playing a super serious game and want a super serious world, and someone makes like a Skyrim joke, I'm going to be a little bit like, it's going to show in my face that I'm not too keen on that, right? And so it has to be the right players in that sense for me, I think.
Right. I would see before you said the thing about the Skyrim, when you were talking about like the just playing with people that weren't doing the same thing. I was gonna be like, well, that's a common thing, like especially on the internet now with like Roll20 and stuff. Like I whenever I'm putting together a new crew, I make sure to sit down and say like, hey, what are you trying to get out of this game? Like what is your thing? Like, because if someone says like,
Sure,
well,
yeah, it's important.
right, like if someone's like, oh well, I want to do combat, and then someone's like, well, I like real subtle political intrigue and and lots of role play, like those two people might not get along in the same game, and maybe I'm not trying to run a game, that kind of game. But when you the Skyrim thing, I brought me back to when I was in like, oh god, I was in college, high school and college, and we used to hate, like, it wasn't Skyrim, it was Monty Python jokes.
Yeah.
Were the bane of my existence.
Yeah, those are. If you actually, Adam will actually straight up kill you and just like kick you from the show if you make Python jokes on roleplay. He's stated that multiple times, and it's never been done before. No one's ever actually made. I guess the coconut thing with the horses is the only thing that like ever gets a pass. Whenever we're like on horses, someone will do like the, clop two coconuts together, and that'll get by Adam, but. Anything else is like if you mention witches, like all the favorite lines, you just don't do that. I don't want to test that.
It used to be an epidemic, man. It used to be.
I'm sure that movie ruined DM's world just for when that shit came out. It was probably a nightmare without a doubt. But yeah, I don't know. DMing is like, it's such a. I feel like I would be in such a microscope if I DM'd a show, just by my audience, by our audience. Like I'll watch, and even you can look at the final episode of Critical Role recently. There was so much discussion, even the final fight with Vecna. Like Matt got picked apart and had to like come out and issue a statement about different things and defend players, and it's just like, come on, man, it's a goddamn It's a tabletop game. Just give him a break.
Which is super weird because I had Matt on the show and we were talking, and he and I were talking about like the little kind of like improv tricks, like behind the screen stuff that DMs like to do, fudging numbers and moving things around. And he's like, I just like the audience doesn't let me do that because they'll write a 7-page Reddit post about a rule that I didn't do, right?
Yeah, that happens all the time, even as players on Court of Swords, or when a player can't remember something, like the chat really just grills them, and I guess it just is what it is, right? Like, people are going to be assholes. It's the internet, blah blah blah, and you kind of prune those people from your community as much as possible. But when you're as big as Critical Role is, it's definitely a lot harder to do so. And the other factor is, Critical Role doesn't like run a lot of that stuff. They don't necessarily run the subreddit. They kind of just let it exist and be fan run, right? So it's such a weird thing. It's like, to think about the fact that people were legitimately upset over a tabletop game being run by a bunch of friends, basically sitting at a table, is crazy. But it shows they're passionate. So I get it. I understand. People love what they watch.
I'm actually super interested in that because, like, for example, from my perspective, I would absolutely have no problem, like, fudging a rule or making up something or, like, whiffing a challenge behind the screen, right? Because that's just, I'm a very lazy person. Some people don't know this. I've been running a horror game for, like, 30-something episodes now. I've never once written a stat block for anything in that game, right? And so it's like, so I wouldn't care, and I'm sure there might be a person in the audience who might like get turned off by that and not watch. But does that is that like, if you like, let's say you as a creator don't care about, like, you will happily just take your liberties at the table, but your audience might have an issue with it. Do you like, if you're in your position where you have like a large audience and a lot of influence, do you err on the side of the audience or just kind of doing your own thing?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's the DM's choice, right? Like, I'm not going to tell Adam how to react or how to deal with the situation. And I think most of the time, Adam and me have, in fact, I can't recall a time where Adam and I haven't agreed with something that he's done. And a lot of times, one of my kind of unspoken rules is on the show, don't talk to people in the chat while on the show, there have been times where people have like legitimately called someone out in the chat But it's kind of an unspoken rule, right? It kind of like breaks that wall. If you want to have if you want to have a direct line of communication with someone in the chat, talk to them in chat is kind of what I say. And that's just kind of that's
You
how
mean
it's been.
don't
So
talk to people in chat on stream? Like,
yeah, like don't be like, hey, what's going on, Crazy Rat? I don't know if I agree with your statement because of blah blah blah, right? It
right.
just breaks that whole thing.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Yeah. But there have been times where someone in chat, one of the rules in role play is, if you're gonna critique or say that we did something wrong, rules wise, is always provide a page number in a book for where that rule comes from, and that's always worked out for Adam for sure.
See, the thing about rules is so weird. After this show, I'm gonna run to my home game, where we play. I've been playing Pathfinder with that group for like almost 3 years now, and
Yeah.
as I learn new systems and more D&D and more like Mouse Guard and other things, I just started Blades in the Dark and a few other things. Pathfinder gets pushed more and more out of my head, so I remember like maybe a tenth of what I used to know about the system. And I mess stuff up all the time, and I'm so lucky that like in that game my players don't mind, like they are super into, because they don't, unlike me, they don't play a ton of other games, so they'll happily be like, that's not how grapple works, and then correct it and not have their experience ruined, right? Which I super need.
Well, that's the other thing too, is I think at the end of the day, if the 4 or 5 people or however many people are at your table, regardless of if it's streamed or if it's not streamed, if everyone's having fun and no one's pissed off about something that just happened, who cares if a rule got flubbed, if it got messed up, right? Like, as long as everyone's happy and enjoying their time there, at the end of the day, I could really care less that, Joe Bob is upset that 14 was actually a failure instead of a success. And yeah, that's kind of my whole issue with it, is just if people are having fun, just watch.
Right, absolutely.
But,
and a couple people in chat were echoing the same sentiments, like saying like, well, if the show is good, it really doesn't matter if rules are wrong or even not there to. But I feel like there's always like, it's like you said, it's whether or not you care about that person who writes the dissertation on Reddit about why you got that thing wrong. It's like, you could just ignore it, I guess. It could just not be a thing.
Yeah. It's like that age-old adage of the loudest people on the internet are probably going to be the negative ones, right? Or the people that disagree with you.
Yeah. The negative ones have the most energy to yell at.
Yeah. You. Yeah. So that's definitely something that we deal with on. I think anyone deals with on a daily basis with a lot of stuff. But at the end of the day, people are having fun. I don't care too much about it.
Absolutely. Well, we're coming up on the 9 o'clock. I figure this is a good time to just take a quick 2 minutes and first of all thank everyone in chat for hanging out. Thank you guys. I haven't been talking in chat because I'm horrible at multitasking, but thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for hanging out. All of those awesome follows and comments in chat. You guys being so active. If you guys are just joining us, welcome. This is Fuzzy Dice. You see it's right above me. The Dungeon Master Show here on the Exploding Dice channel. Normally we do this on Tuesdays, but today we're doing it on Fridays because why not? We're all full of turkey, and you might as well talk about D&D after that. I
appreciate that as well.
Did you have a good Thanksgiving, man?
Yeah. I went over and saw some family yesterday, which I don't do too often just because of the nature of the job and whatnot. So yeah, I had a good time. How about yourself?
It was good. I was supposed to cook French onion soup, but I didn't. But
Did you get in trouble?
No, they were just like, there's not gonna be enough people. Just don't. We'll do it later. I think my family just wanted me to cook for them and not like the extended family.
Gotcha. Okay.
But no, I made a turkey. I made some side dishes. It was good. It was a good event. Good time.
Nice.
Well, guys, what we usually like to do during the second half of the show is we're just gonna open up the floor to questions, topics, whatever you guys want to talk about. No, even if you want to get like weirdly personal, I don't really mind. I will field those questions anyway. Make JP uncomfortable, and then he'll never come back.
No, I don't mind. Ask me anything.
So basically, the way that you guys should do that, I assume there's probably going to be a lot, so I'm going to try and keep track of them as best you can. Like Shadzar has said in chat, make sure you tag at Exploding Dice, or just put the word question in big caps so I see them. The at Exploding Dice helps a lot. And yeah, just toss us, your role-playing game questions, topics, things you want to discuss. While we're waiting for that to tune up, I will remind you guys, if you are enjoying the show, please hit that follow button. I'm going to talk about all of the roleplay content that we do here. And of course, if you really, really enjoy the show, please consider hitting that subscribe button or hitting the Patreon link. We hit a couple more patrons, we're going to be starting patron and sub DM hangouts, as well as some other cool stuff. You also get bonuses like Nat 20s and things that you can drop in our games at each of the different levels, just to mess things up a little bit. So yeah, if you like supporting roleplay content on Twitch, that is the way to do it. All right, so you all ready to do this, man? You ready to dive into this question thing?
Yeah, I love doing this.
Let's see how many we can get through here. Eranthius says, favorite recent RPing moment.
Favorite recent RPing moment. We did an episode of Court of Swords, episode 51. It's probably an hour 3 if you want to go watch the VOD for it. Where my character, who is a new character of the show, met Gassy Mexican's character, Berg, who's probably like the main character of the show if there was one, who's been alive for 30 episodes in a show where 5e, we were basically running every encounter at Deadly, so we died a lot.
You talk about a lot of characters dying in that show.
Yeah, I think I've been through 7 or 8 over 50 episodes, man. But yeah, we died a lot. But Max's character, made it through a lot alive. He was usually the sole survivor, a lot of that stuff. So I created a character where he was kind of he's a wizard who's kind of a research guy, and is interested in why Berg is able to do what Berg has done for so long, and kind of his story and all that stuff. Because a lot of it's been different things where it necessarily wasn't shown on screen what's happened. And so that's kind of the character. And the two of us met, and I think one of the things that a lot of people do when it comes to, and we've talked about this before on the show, a lot of people have a tendency to have like a slight giggle or a smile after they say something that's like RP centric, right? They don't like hold their tone. They don't like let the moment or the moment just linger. They don't have a good
poker face.
Something like that. Yeah. Whatever that like laugh is after you say something kind of serious and definitely nerdy. It's the nerdiest thing after you do that stuff. But yeah, we both kept a very straight face throughout the entire kind of encounter. And it was a lot of fun kind of doing that on stream, and a lot of people seem to enjoy it. So that was probably the most recent one, I would say, is when Berg met Sally Hoffa, the turtle wizard. And turtles are fun to play. I'm playing a turtle rather in 5e, which is one of the newer races in their supplemental package they released. And it's fun. I'm enjoying it.
I've seen some people play them. I haven't looked into them, but obviously they look like my kind of thing. I could have made a turtle wizard in the Daubers. That would have been fun.
They're fun.
In that game, I'm playing a rat folk who druid. So
nice.
he wild shapes into a swarm of rats.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. My best. Well, okay. So the best RP moment that I've seen recently was not one that I played through, but it was one that I was DMing for. And it was on the last episode of Writhing Moon. Actually, the one that I believe the one that I was going to do that we started the vodcast for right before this show. And so Writhing Moon is a horror show. Very akin. It's got a lot of Bloodborne influences and a lot of other things mixed in there. And there is a character named Felix who is like a crazy psycho priest who goes nuts when he sees blood. And then there is Gurney, who is a cartographer. He has a hole in his chest from which he shoots necromantic energy. And he actually now he has like a piece of an old one inside of him, and it kind of spews out these cancerous tendrils of flesh from that hole in his chest. So they were fighting this this giant monster that was basically like a wet nurse for this baby. And they killed it, and they fought it, and it was a nasty, nasty fight. And then they were basically talking about going on through this dangerous castle in the shadow of like this moon that is slowly getting closer to the Earth. And I don't remember the exact wording. You'll have to watch the episode, but everyone in the community has been talking about Felix and Gurney kind of like having an unspoken thing. Which started as a joke because they got trapped in the same dimension together. But, I mean, you'll have to watch the video to get the exact context, but basically Gurney tells Felix, like, whatever they're gonna come up against next, like, he hopes he survives because there's no one else that he wants to spend, survive Palemore with. And they essentially, I don't want to say propose, but confessed their feelings for each other. And it was just
awesome.
It was a really spontaneous moment that I was not even remotely expecting. It just came out of nowhere, and I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Like, I love this. This is great.
Yeah. We haven't had too many romantic PC interaction on roleplay. There was one in West Marches where me and Dodger's character kind of had a thing. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think back if there was another one. I might just be blanking on stuff. A lot of it's kind of like it was just kind of like joke relationships, kind of like what we were mentioning. But I think as the maturity level of a show rises, that's something that's going to happen, right? Because it's a fun thing to explore. For sure.
It's one of those things where it's in a horror movie where you have like the last two people who are alive, and they kind of like. It's always like the nerdy guy and the cheerleader, and like somehow they find like through their shared horror and survival, like they find their feelings for each other, or it's like you don't really have anyone else to rely on. That's kind of the situation that they ended up being in. But I wasn't part of it. I was the DM, but I just got to sit back and just watch some amazing roleplay, and I'm just like, I love this show. It's fucking great.
Mirror Shades was another one that chat's reminding me, where we had two characters who were kind of romantically involved with DJ Wheat and Dodger's character on that. That was a Shadowrun.
I'm not gotten to play Shadowrun yet.
It's a big system. It's
complicated.
It's a big system. Yeah. Be careful when you do. It's a big system. It took us about 30 episodes for us to finally understand what was happening, and then we ended the show. So. It's a big thing for sure. Yeah.
Speaking of that, Forget Me Now says, is there any system that JP would like to play that he hasn't?
I think I'd be interested in I haven't watched Burning Wheel's a show or a system that gets thrown around a lot on roleplay. Adam has a show on Roll20, and he's a big spokesperson for the show, or for the system. I've never watched any of it, so I'd be interested in kind of seeing how that system works. I've heard it's super mechanic based and kind of like minute to minute, rather than like being a like D&D where you can kind of cover a day in a couple minutes. So situation.
The way that because I don't know Burning Wheel specifically, I've only played Mouse Guard, but the reason I really enjoyed Mouse Guard was because rather than D&D where you sort of role play through every part of a scene, right? Like your movement, your talking, your interactions, the minute details. In Mouse Guard, you kind of like, you will make a check and then you kind of narrate chunks of time that are indefinite, like rolling a Pathfinder check to get from one town to another could basically encompass multiple days of traveling, right? It's not the thing that I love is the combat, because combat uses cards, and it's kind of like a 4-card rock paper scissors system, right? And so but it's not specifically combat, so you can do it for physical combat, but it's for what's the word for it? I don't remember the exact word they use, but we've done like rhetorical combat. Like there was one show where we were negotiating a trade deal, and it's using the same combat system, right? You have to like beat down your opponent and try and do damage to their position so that you could win, and the more you win by, the more of your goal you get. And if you lose, you have to make compromises in your goal, and it's really, really interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested. I'm always down just for. I mean, we've done Made RPG, which is just like a complete throwaway game, and people are super into that. But I think for like a serious, sit down, long campaign style game, it'd probably be Burning Wheel. Is probably what I'm most interested in. But at the end of the day, like, I started 5e is so much fun, and I started reading this and seeing the different character options.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, I'm not bored of making characters anymore. Now I have about 10 new characters I can make.
That's actually why I still play Pathfinder, because of the so many character options and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that customization stuff for sure. That's my favorite part of D&D. Without a doubt.
If you're in the market for stupid one-shot systems, my favorite game is Big Motherfucking Crab Truckers.
Yeah? What?
Yes.
Okay. Is it free? Is there a free
it's
PDF?
Like the rules fit on less than a page, and it's super easy to learn, and it's one of my favorite things ever. Gotcha. It has one rule: you tell a story until someone says no fucking way, and then you roll to see who's right.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. We might have to. Yeah, we're always into the throwaway games like that. We might have to do that.
Do it, man. I've been an evangelist for it, but if we can take Big Motherfucking Crab Truckers mainstream, that'll be it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay. And Naris says, you talked about edited D&D content not doing very well. What about Harmon Quest? Do you think that its level of success is due to the animation, like the cartoon aspect of it?
I mean, I think it's the fact that Dan Harmon's name's attached to it.
Right. It's a TV show, right? Like it's...
Yeah, like that guy has a rabid, ginormous fan base. So I think success is natural to something like that. And I'll be real honest, when I say like edited content, I kind of factor out a lot of the stuff that is on YouTube, because I think numbers wise there, Force Grave does pretty well in terms of VOD viewership on YouTube. But mostly speaking to like live viewership. I think Dan's done a couple of, or Harmon Quest has done a couple of things on Twitch. I remember Adam was like on a panel with them at some event, maybe it was in Austin or something like that, where he was kind of he was like your tabletop nerd, so to speak, and kind of like critiqued what they were doing or saying on the show. It was a weird thing that he told me occurred. I never went back and watched the VOD. But yeah, I think stuff like Harmon Quest is super, does super well, but it's not necessarily on Twitch. I think another one is it the Adventure Zone? Is that the
Adventure Zone is a podcast, and it's like
podcast.
It's like the biggest D&D podcast there is.
Yeah, and it's pretty edited, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We've I've talked to a couple of those guys before in attempts to get them on the show, but there was interest, and then I kind of just never
didn't work.
There was interest, and then I just never followed up. Those guys have an actual agent, and they're super fucking busy. So I mean, those guys have a Hollywood agent, so it's a little bit bigger deal than what I'm used to. But
I think Harmon Quest, again, it's like, it was also the format. It was essentially like a TV show. It was presented more as a TV show than like a D&D podcast or game.
Right.
You know? And yeah, there's the strength of the viewers, and its promotion helped a ton.
Yeah, I think Adam's actually talked about that before, in the sense that it's not necessarily a tabletop show. It's more just like a role-playing show where they just role-play and like
it's like improv comedy, basically.
Dice. Yeah, it's like improv, exactly. But the stuff that I have seen, the clips that I have seen from there, are the guy from Silicon Valley, Tom something or other. He was on there as I don't know his name off the top of my head, but he was on there, and the clip that I saw was absolutely hilarious. So that stuff as well.
It's really funny. Like, it's a good show. I enjoy it a lot. I just think it sits out a little bit outside of the realm of like what we do. But
yeah, I would agree.
Interesting. So NATO Filter says, JP, have you ever been happy with the merchandising of roleplay? Any plans for weird stuff like miniatures?
Miniatures are expensive. When
Yeah,
to
I
speak to
know.
that in a sense, you have to buy the cast for it, the actual mold for it, and that stuff costs a couple $1,000s depending on what you want to on how big the project is. So the return on investment there is really bad. Um, I would love to do that type of stuff. I think that we were in talks with a merch provider a couple months back, and opted not to go through with it, but. I think merch is a full time job, and it sometimes gets my attention when I want it to. But I also think that there's a thing that is like having too much out there for people to buy means that people won't buy anything, right? Is something that at least I've seen on Twitch, where we were pumping out shirts for a while, probably one or two a month, or at least one every other month. And as time went on, the sales started to decline just because the amount of money that people are willing to spend on the
Right. I mean,
product
no
starts
one
to
buys a
decline.
shirt every month, right?
I buy
Like,
shirts every 6 months. Like, who the fuck buys a shirt every month? That's a
right.
crazy person. No one does that. So uh, we've done some stuff. Do I wish it was? What was the original question? Do I wish it was better?
Do you want to do more weird? Like, are you happy with it with your merchandise, and do you want to do weird stuff with it?
I would love to do weird stuff with the merch. It's expensive to do weird stuff with the merch. One of my favorite things in terms of any sort of merchandise that's come out in several years was the giant bomb fidget spinner with Jeff Gerstmann's face on it that got
Okay.
launched like a day or two ago. And it's like the fidget spinner craze is over, but
Yeah.
they don't fucking care. It's a fidget spinner with Jeff Gerstmann's face looking serious on it. That's awesome. I
Just
would love to have that stuff. But getting the merch partners to be able to fulfill such a thing is easier said than done for sure. Again, it's a full-time job for that stuff, without a doubt.
just go to Cafe Press and have it on everything: panties, mugs,
Right,
door
and
magnets.
there is the option of just like going that route, without a doubt, which we've looked into, but the margins there are a
Right.
little bit rough. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I
Merch
we
is always something I'm interested in.
I like shirts. I just like I haven't. We have our couple, and it's like I wanted to design a couple more, but I just couldn't. Like I haven't had the inspiration for them, right?
Yeah,
And it's like
yeah,
I could hire an artist, but I don't know.
yeah. There's we did some It Me Happy socks like a year or so ago, and that was probably like the weirdest merch we've ever
I
done.
think I remember those. I think I saw those
Yeah,
on Twitter.
they did surprisingly well too. It made I forgot. I think it was a couple hundred. It wasn't like ginormous amounts of money,
Right.
but it was enough to break even on it for sure. And that was fun. That was fun for sure.
Uh, okay, interesting. This is a question I get a lot, which is hard to. And actually, Adam had such a succinct answer to this. But he says for both of you, Tendafix says for both of you guys, what would be your dream cast for a game, either celebrities or friends?
Um,
I guess
I
I'll
mean,
shorten that up. Is there anyone you would love to play game like you would just like that would make your your year?
I think like the obvious answer is it'd be fun to be like, the question has to be quantified in the sense of like, are these people that play games actively? Are these people that don't play games that are just celebrities? Like, I think honestly, people within the space for my dream game kind of already happened when we did Dogs in the Vineyard, where we had it was myself,
Yeah.
Austin Walker, Jerry from Penny Arcade, and Matt with Adam DMing, and that was definitely a big thing for me, only because we started out role play with Acquisitions Incorporated. Kind of the whole reason we did it was because of their show to begin
Right.
with, and then 2 years later we ended up getting Jerry, and Jerry just continually impresses me with how personal he can be, and how nice of a person he is, and to begin with. And so that was
Yeah.
just a huge thing to have him on for sure.
If we're talking within the roleplay world, like obviously I would love to play a game with Matt one day. Mercer,
Yeah.
that's a thing. But on like, it's so weird because in the past year, I've had the opportunity to meet and play with so many people that I would have never expected. Like, so many amazing people that it's like,
Yeah.
everything else is just really, really cool, and like maybe it'll happen, but like I don't know, man. If you want, like, I don't know. I guess I do want to, like, I do kind of want to play D&D with Ian McKellen one day. That's just, I feel like that's just
That'd be
that
pretty
should
cool.
happen. But
Yeah.
and maybe Vin Diesel. Why not? Sure, Vin Diesel.
Yeah. Honestly, at the end of the day, I feel like the best and most important thing when it comes to tabletop RPGs is to play with people that give a shit
Right.
about what you're playing, right? And so, like, if we got like Harrison Ford, he probably would not give any fucks about the fact that we're playing a tabletop game. But for me, it'd be like the coolest thing ever, right? So I'd be like super into it, and he'd be like, "Well, I guess I shoot him, right? Like, I guess I'm just gonna shoot or stab this guy."
I feel
But
like
I'm
I need
Harrison
to see
Ford,
that just
so...
for the novelty, though.
Yeah, but like he's not gonna. I don't think he would buy into it, right? So I'm honestly just happy enough if I can get 5 people on a show and everyone gives the same amount of fucks as everyone
Yeah.
else, and are super invested into it. That's a dream. That's enough for me, and it happens more often than not with a lot of the role play stuff. So
Yeah, I obviously that's like whether, and I tell this actually I tell this to people a lot, because I talk to a lot of the people who are just starting out, like trying to stream or do a podcast or something, and they're like, well, what do I do? I can't get like big name people on my show. And it's like, well, no, that's not like, that's not what's gonna that's gonna maybe get someone to listen to your show, but what's gonna get someone to stay
yeah,
is
here's the most important thing. Critical Role did not start off massive. For the longest time, we beat them in numbers almost every single week.
right.
It wasn't until people started to realize, oh, these guys are actually really fucking talented at what they do. And the
Right.
numbers just continued to grow over time as they just got more and more eyes on it, right? For the longest time, they were just kind of voice actors that didn't have that big of a fan base outside of the fan base they had for voice acting, right? And now they're like monumental in this space. But if they can do it, anyone can do it. There's nothing special about what they do. They're just talented voice actors, right? Like, you can learn that skill.
Someone said Nathan Fillion joined a game of Firefly RPG. That'd be pretty cool. He seems like a cool guy.
That would be pretty cool, without a doubt. Yeah.
Grant Imhara played, I think, for an episode of two on Maze Arcana, I believe.
I saw that. Yeah. I remember when he was on there for sure. But again, if you go and look at the numbers on that show, it didn't really bump it up at all.
Right.
Like,
it's such a weird translation, right? Like,
yeah.
But also, I think that's also the benefit of like all of the people that are out in LA right now are just bringing on these actors and, you know, industry people, and it's like, I guess, you know, the RPG community is only as, you know, it's not like, you have the people that are already there, and it's not going to be like a flood of new people, I don't think.
Right. Yeah. It's a weird space. It's a really weird thing. At the end of the day, like, that's kind of our goal, is just keep doing what we're doing, and we'll see what comes of the actual space to begin with.
Right. Yeah, it's I mean, and it has and it will continue to grow, like, organically. I don't think it's ever, like, nothing is going to get the roleplay space to just sort of explode. It's just going to kind of steadily increase, and I think there's an audience for everyone as long as your heart's in it.
Yeah, and I kind of prefer it that way. Honestly, I'm glad it doesn't. I'm glad it like.
It's not like Pokemon Go where like everyone piles in.
Well, yeah. Like flash in the pan type stuff never really has like a lasting audience, right? I think there's something to be said too that one show specifically can generate 30,000 plus viewers, and a large viewership for another show for every other show is like 4,000 or 5,000.
Right.
So there's definitely like a sense of not necessarily catch up, but like growth that needs to occur for a lot of the smaller shows, for sure.
Where were we? I actually thought you guys were talking about this a while back, but Ronan702 says, any plans for more GMs on roleplay?
Yeah, we were talking about it. I'll kind of say the same thing because this came up earlier today in the Patreon video, or the Patreon Q&A. One of the things that is nice about the like tabletop RPG world on Twitch at large is that it's pretty easy to turn on a stream these days and, throw up a JPEG and crop out some Skype cameras and put on a show. And I think once people kind of discovered and learned that it's, the big secret is it's not that hard, and they can do it themselves, they're a little bit reluctant to kind of jump on board on another platform once they've already established themselves. We've definitely offered 3 or 4 people behind the scenes, a full-time gig with us, and a lot of their responses, the majority of their responses, in fact, I think all of their responses was, I got this thing that I'm doing right now, and that's kind of where my time is right now, and we're going to be kind of expanding it, so we're just going to kind of stick with that. And, okay, great. That's there's nothing wrong with that. I think one thing where we kind of shot ourselves in the foot with roleplay early on, which was great for growth but bad for stability and for the long run, was doing so many fucking shows. I think at one point we were doing like 4 or 5 shows a week, alongside me doing normal streams as well outside of all that. So 8+ hour streams on top of that stuff alongside the normal roleplay shows, and then just kind of running all that stuff behind the scenes. And I mean, you can attest to it. It's a lot of fucking work.
It is.
There's a shit ton of amount of time when it comes to scheduling all that stuff and getting people to always be on time, especially once you start dealing with people that have their own audiences
Other
and have their own
streamers
requirements.
are the hardest to work with.
Right. So setting that precedent kind of set us up for failure, and I think a lot of viewers' eyes once we kind of took that back and said, 2 shows is happy right now. I think the perfect medium for us would be 3. We had 3 when we were running Blades with John. I'd prefer to go back to 3, but finding a DM, I'm not just going to grab a DM just for the sake of having 3 shows. Like I want it to make sense. I want it to be a good show. I want the DM to be good at what they're doing. And the best way for me to do that is to simply just watch other shows. But I think I said at the beginning, if you go look at the directory, probably right now even, I mean, I can pull it up live on the show, and we can just look to see how many other shows there is. Geek and Sundry, Arcadum, Hyper RPG, Wet for Jesus, Night Xera, Adif 99, Rob 2E, Saving Throw Show, Casual Joker, Dungeoneers, our DNR Podcast, Gelstrom, Malleus, Kamihanta, Avrin Aileron, Proficiency Bonus, D&D Time, Perilous Pixie. It goes on.
There's a lot, yeah.
There's 30 shows live right now, all doing the same thing that we do on Roleplay. It's a crazy amount of people doing the same thing. And so when it gets to be that easy, how do you decide on, who's someone you want to work with that's not already established and hasn't really been quote tested for a large audience, besides just watching all that content, when there's so much fucking content to watch? It's impossible for a human being to watch all that.
I don't know if I can't super attest to putting someone on roleplay, but for example, we and now this is actually some behind the scenes stuff, but I had one show for a while. I had Writhing Moon, and I had my talk show. And then we started a Wednesday show, and that wasn't doing too well. And then we started Mouse Guard, and essentially I had 2 shows and a talk show. And this was before the partner achievements came out, and I was really when affiliates were just starting out, and it's I was really gunning to make partner on Twitch, and I was in my head, I'm like, the only way that's gonna happen is adding more content, right? More content means more views. And that's what they care about.
That's the mindset for sure, to take at that stuff, right? When I think starting out, being live and in front of 5 people or however many people watch the show on a normal basis, the most important thing, right, is the grind. And that grind doesn't go away until a very long time.
Right.
And this is the other thing too is, when I started in this on Twitch, it was wildly different. I have no fucking clue if I was going to start over today what I would do and what the angle I would be to grow. And so for me, it's just, you got to grind it out. And I think that's what most people would probably say, is just grind that stuff out. And so I think it does make sense to and especially in a category like D&D, it's pretty simple, or not simple, I shouldn't say. It's easier to get to the top of the directory of D&D than it is like PUBG, for example.
Oh yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a cool space to kind of grow into. But I don't know. It's still hard. It's still difficult. But yeah, to go back to the original question, I don't know when we're going to add a third DM. I would wish it was tomorrow. I wish I could say, we're going to add in a fourth DM. I would love to do that stuff, but it's got to make sense. It's got to be someone that me and Adam agree with, kind of on a personal level and a work level, and doesn't necessarily having like it's a weird thing. You just got to be able to work with them on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis, and I think that's why me and Adam work so well, is because there's some weird cosmic force that decided the two of us would meet, and it's just worked out. He's a dream to work with. I don't think in the 2 or 3 years that I've worked with Adam, I don't think we've ever had a single argument. I don't think we've ever like yelled at each other or anything, and that's I like my job drama free, and I think so does he.
I've met Adam a bunch of times, and I'm like, I can't imagine him actually yelling. Like he just, I can't imagine what it would look like.
I think me and Adam both approach like being upset in the same way, and we just walk away.
Yeah.
Like if we're truly upset at something, we just don't fucking deal with it and just leave. And that's kind of, I don't know. That's how I think we work so well together, because we don't really get upset at each other. So. We'll see. I want a third DM, but who knows?
Yeah, I hear that's actually just to add on to that a little bit. The weird thing about streaming, and I guess you have Adam, and he's a great DM, and he does a lot of stuff for you. When I started, it was like this was my channel, and I knew I could DM because I knew what my standards for myself was. Right, and how I wanted to run things. Jesus, that was loud. Sorry, guys. But I didn't like. It's so hard to see, to ask someone else to run a game on your channel and then expect them to have the same dedication to your show as and your content as you do. Right.
That's a weird thing too, man. I ran into that pretty early on in role play. We shot up to pretty early on, probably the first month or so of doing roleplay shows, and we put our VODs behind Subwall. We shot up to around 3,000 or 4,000, or like 3,000 subs, I think, was around that first or second month on Twitch. And there was always a sense of like, oh man, I hope these 4 other people, don't decide that they're not going to do the show unless they get like a large percentage of that, or like how that's going to work. That's not to say I didn't pay people to be on the show. After I kind of figured out, I guess this is a business, I got to figure this out. But it's a weird thing, man. It's doing content with other people on a platform that is monetized can create a lot of issues.
It is. It's a weird thing to ask other people, right?
Yeah.
Just, hey, believe in this project exactly at the same amount as I do. That's
right. But don't get paid for it, right? Like don't find
right.
success for it.
No. I can't help you there.
It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing, right?
Work for
that's why
please.
That's why we always do our shout outs at the end of the shows, right? Because like besides the monetary benefit of being on the show, which I'll be real honest, the people on the show, what we pay is not very much to them at all. But we have 10 or so people on the show, so it kind of adds up over time. But being able to promote their stuff and kind of get a lot of the audience over to their channel and say, hey, we're going to be streaming this next game or this big game on X day, blah, blah, blah. Make sure to come check us out. I have no issue doing that stuff.
Oh, yeah. No, like showing as much love to the other and promoting the content of the people that you work with, I think is hugely important because, right, like they're also streamers and I like the idea that the community supports everyone, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something I wish Twitch would, something I've always kind of wanted from Twitch. And they did it for a little while with the fighting game community, where on shows like this, on Ensemble Cast, where you've got, me and you, or Drop Frames, or any really show where there's multiple people on the same broadcast. It'd be so awesome if you could do like so and so cheer 100, and then a username after that, and it
Oh,
cheers that broadcaster.
directly to the person.
Yeah, and it just goes to that thing, right?
That'd actually be really cool. Yeah.
And I've been begging Twitch for the longest time behind the scenes for that stuff, because all the time I get people that will tip or something like that, and they'll say like, "Hey, good job on role play stuff. We really enjoy what you guys are doing." And it's like, well, I feel really shitty taking this. Like, that's not my money. That's the money for the show, right? And
Right.
the show he's watching the show because of the other 4 people on it. So I'm not necessarily owed that money. I wish I could divvy this up in a very transparent way with everyone else, but there's always the question. Like, money is such a fucking weird thing, and money and people don't mix.
Yeah.
So it's getting that stuff right with the tools that I would want definitely comes from like Twitch supporting that stuff. So who knows?
On an entirely different note, Valkyrion says, if you could have one of your characters protect you through a D&D dungeon, who would it be? As
like an NPC?
I guess which character would you feel safest around?
Probably. Well, I play all my heroes. All my characters are like pretty murder hobo-y. I'm trying to think of like what the nicest character I've played.
I'm trying to remember. I would probably want to hang out with my old lore master, lore warden, Shohan. He was like an Asian guy who came back from war. He had like a split personality. Like he had so he went back to his homeland to fight for like 20 years in this war, and I guess over there he like put on a mask, like a golden helmet in the middle of a fight, and just sort of became this hero, but he didn't want to be that guy. So like when he took off his armor, he was just a normal dude, but to everyone in there he was like this symbol of hope in that particular fight. And so he kind of had this like, he didn't want to accept that. But he was also like a jovial guy. He knew like it was a specific Pathfinder archetype that lets a fighter have like knowledge, skills, and those kind of things, so you aren't dumb as a rock.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Most of the characters, if I was ever, I mean, if it, it's such a weird thing. If it was like agreed upon that they would not kill me, I'd probably go with Crusher, which was my my Shadowrun character, who was he was a troll that had the equivalent of like a tank rifle on him, and he also had big metal arms, so he would fight hand to hand. I'd probably go with him. I'd probably live a while with him. He also he also grabbed a car and slammed it against some children. So he's kind of a fucked up guy.
It's not a D&D game if some children. I mean, it's not a role playing game if some children don't die at some point, right? Like,
yeah,
it's going to happen.
Yeah, that was a funny episode.
Was it intentional? Weird. Was it like?
Let's just move on. We're just going down a dark path.
Oh Lord, hold on, let me go back. First of all, guys, I wanted to give a shout out to my friend Splattered Ink with the 3-month resub. If you guys don't know, Daryl is the DM for our Daubers game, and also a fantastic art. He drew all the tokens. He hand drew an entire dungeon map and colored it. It's nice.
Nice.
Yeah. So, thank you, Daryl. Welcome to the madness.
Technically, the kid, it was a motorcycle, and the kid was part of a gang, and he had a gun, and I had to kill him. Okay? He was in high school, and he was going down a bad path. Okay? We just had to take him out.
I think I scrolled down past my questions. Where am I? Oh, here we go. Okay, here's some more. Blunderful Guy says, have you or would you ever consider putting together a competitive series? like a D&D championship series. I have thought
Like
about
a
this, and I'm
player
like,
versus player type thing.
well, yeah, I was like, how would you do that? Like, would it be like a? Because I had thought about like when I was putting together a charity event recently, the first thought in my head was like competitive dungeon crawling, but I'm like, how would you even do that? I don't even know.
Yeah, PvP doesn't really work so much with tabletop RPGs, only because human emotion gets brought into it. So, and when it's RNG based, right? Well, like when the idea of me hitting this person is based on a dice roll. It kind of sucks when it goes one way or the other, depending on where you're at on that side of the die, right? Um, I think it was Misclicks did something like PvP themed a while back.
Yeah, I'm not familiar, so it's probably before my time.
Yeah, I have no idea how it worked
So
out. We
so
did something similar with Balance Power, but yeah, go ahead.
the only thing I think it was PvP, but you know who Saving Throw Show is?
I have heard the name.
Right. So they're like a smaller version of Geek and Sundry. They do their own studio stuff. They're actually on our team, the Tabletop Game Network. But
Nice.
they don't do it anymore, but they used to do this show called Monday Night Dungeon Fight, which was kind of like a competitive dungeon PvP thing. With like, and they do it every week, and it would have like, winners would go on in brackets and stuff like that. That was a competitive show, and it was pretty good. I don't know the exact rules, other than Tom Lommel, aka the Dungeon Bastard, was using a D30 because it was more extreme.
Oh, nice.
But that's the only thing I know about it.
Yeah, we did something kind of PvP-ish in a show. We did Balance Power. We had a Dark and Light Side, which was a Star Wars show. And the things that the dark side did would, like blowing up different Empire things, right? Like dark side shit, blowing up whatever, would influence how the light side would have their mission. And depending on what they did on their mission, that would influence what we would do in the next section. So we would go back and forth. Like one week would be light side, the next would be dark side, the next week would be light side, etc. And that was kind of fun. It wasn't too crazy in terms of how the games influence each other, but that's probably the furthest we've been in like the PvP world.
My friends are doing something like that, but with Blades in the Dark. They run
that would work.
Like Wednesday is one crew, Thursday is another crew, and like they're both operating in the same city, so like they're both trying to fuck over each other.
Yeah, we when John did Blades in the Dark for us, I think there was 3 crews that were PC run in the same city, and someone on our show bought drugs from someone on the other show, but they were an NPC in our show, but John was playing them as if they were the PC. He would play them how the PC was played on his other show.
Yeah.
And that stuff's always really cool, both for viewers and for people playing in the game, because it feels like the world's alive in that sense.
Yeah,
I think that's cool.
I think they did some cool stuff. I'm not a Blaze in the Dark guy yet. I'm still reading I have my collector's edition book like right over there. But I've been thumbing through it when I have some time. But I think they've been doing some really cool stuff with that. It's really cool that the community kind of is watching this whole event, but for them it's just their crew trying to make their way in the world. I don't know. That's pretty cool. I like the idea behind that. I had actually toyed with the idea of doing something like that in a Pathfinder setting. It was gonna be like so Pathfinder released Hell's Rebels and Hell's Vengeance, and they were like a good and evil adventure path. And I was considering sort of rewriting them so they were both operating and competing for control of the same city. It's like a good and an evil party. I never got around to it. I was toying with the idea, but
yeah, that type of stuff is always fun to experiment, for sure.
A lot of investment though, a lot of work. Planning and organizing and all that.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Yeah, man. Big motherfucking grab truckers. We're talking about. Okay, there we go. El Warius says, for JP, how do you approach other streamers for shows, and has the process changed over the years? Do you just slide into those DMs, just real smooth?
I lucked out with my job in esports to where consider myself, and I think most people do as well, just to be pretty networked into a lot of different like not necessarily cliques, but a lot of different like groups on Twitch. So like the esports world, the general gaming world, and things like dropped frames has allowed me to communicate with a lot of other bigger streamers. And most of the people that are on roleplay I met through drop frames, or I met through esports, and kind of asked them to come on to join us on a show and things like that. In terms of like how I met Matt and all them, it was just kind of a friend to friend, and then just kind of being in the space, we just kind of knew each other. But in terms of how I actually approach people to be on the show, it's most the established streamers. When I say established, if I had to put like a number on it, most of the people on the show have like 300,000 or 400,000 followers, if not more, on Twitch before they jump on the show. Because it doesn't the way that I say it, and I think it's probably the best way to say it without feelings getting hurt, is people that have a large following on Twitch have kind of already proven themselves to being receptive to a large audience and being able to perform in front of a large audience. So if we were to bring someone on and for the first time ever they were jumping in front of a 2,000 or 3,000 person audience, I have no way of knowing how they're going to react in front of that, or if they're going to be a different person just because of nerves getting to them, etc. And so everyone that's been on has already kind of, quote, been tested by that. I don't have to worry about that. And I also know that they have the gear to be able to support themselves on a show. They have a decent quality camera or webcam or capture card being fed by an HDMI source or something like that. They have a decent quality mic, because everyone knows audio is super important to streaming. And so I don't have to worry about all that stuff when it comes to the show. I literally just need to make sure that they get there and they're on time, and that's it. I've done shows with, I'm trying to think of like, quote, the smallest streamers we work with, but they're all fairly large and well-established people on the platform.
Probably John.
Yeah, John for sure. DMs are also a little bit of weird.
Yeah.
DMs are weird because apart from the people that are already established, there's not a lot of viewership for a lot of other channels out there. The Adams of the world, the Mercers of the world, the Jerry's of the world, Satine, and kind of everyone over at Maze Arcana, all those people are, Chris Perkins, they've proven themselves. They can do this stuff in front of huge audiences and not be phased whatsoever. And for me, as a business decision, I don't want to put someone on the show who I just consider a loose cannon, right? I have no idea how they're going to interact, not only with me, not only with the audience, but just with other people, right? I have no idea. And so it just makes sense that way to kind of take people that have already been tested. While that sucks, I know a lot of people who have, for the longest time, wanted to be on the show. Talked about it earlier, like, it's not hard to just open up XSplit and learn how to kind of work around in that system and do a show yourself. I think that's probably the best advice.
That's actually really interesting, mostly because so many people send me messages about like, hey, I'd love to play or stream D&D with you. It's like, but I try and pick my casts very specifically, right?
Right.
You know, to provide something that I think I'm looking for, and to work like the people that I think will work together as the best group, and also
Totally.
help the show do the best, right? Because you know, and I do community games and stuff like that, and those are fun. But when I'm trying to produce a show, it's like I'm trying to produce entertainment, right?
Right.
Like tons of people like, hey, I'd love to be on stream, but that doesn't necessarily, just like tons of people would love to play D&D, but that doesn't mean they're going to be a perfect fit for your group. Tons of people
Right.
might love to stream, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be entertaining to watch.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So it's
And
at the end of the day. Well,
I
no,
was just
go
gonna
ahead.
say, especially when this is our business, that's kind of a, you know, it's like, well,
Yeah.
if I put someone on screen and that kind of affects my business, now I'm just in a bad place.
Yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is most people wanting to be on a show that's kind of already established are doing it for, one, their own exposure, and two, to kind of, get their name out there, right? It's very, very rare that they're just doing it because they're fans and want to be a part of that stuff. There's always kind of an ancillary motive behind their head, or just a motive to begin with. But at the end of the day, like, most of the time people on the shows that we do are people that we've worked with before in some other capacity, or people that have kind of already proven themselves in the space.
I was gonna say, I promise that I don't invite JP on the show just because I want to be on roleplay or something like that. Like,
Right. Well, for the longest time, I mean, we can just be honest about this. I think, how long ago was it that you asked me to do this?
I sent you
The
an
first
email
time.
probably about a year ago. It might have been right after the Matt Mercer thing, but I don't remember. It was a while ago. But that was also when you were doing a lot of live stuff and whatever.
Right. I mean, the bold-faced reason why I didn't want to do the show back then is because I felt I hadn't watched your show at all. I didn't know kind of what it was about. And when we ran into each other at PAX, like, I met you face to face. It's like, oh, this guy's actually a cool dude. Like, I'm not gonna go on air and just get sabotaged. Let's fucking do a show. And a week later, here I am.
We've
right?
got 15 minutes. That's still coming.
Yeah, okay. Maybe it'll still happen at the end, right? But like, there's something, and that's not to say anyone I meet in person I'm down to do a show with. It's just, you've done this show for so long. You've done something out of your own passion for this space that I have no problem being on here after however long I kind of just pushed the show aside when I was doing my own thing, for sure.
No, and it's one of those things where, like, I wasn't even, like, I'm not an interviewer. I didn't even plan on doing the talk show. Like, it just kind of happened. But
it's a great way to jump into the content.
Right, that's the thing. Like, it's because of the talk show. Like, that's how I met Satine, and that's how I met Matt Mercer, and that's how I met all these amazing people that I now sort of am like consider like I'm friends with these people. Like, it's just a thing, and it's all because and when you said like anyone can open up a turn on OBS and just kind of do that, like, it takes a little dedication, but like, I mean, hey, if I can do this, you probably, like, anyone in chat can do this.
It's the same exact thing. Like, it's not like I found some fucking secret key 3 years ago, or I guess 3 years, 5 or 6 years ago is when I started this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just opened up OBS and said, all right, let's figure out how this works, and I guess we'll go about it. The nice thing back then, there wasn't as many people doing it. Now there's a fuck ton of people trying to do the same exact thing, so you got to stand out somehow.
Which is actually why I put super ton of work into like my overlays and stuff, because like you were scrolling the D&D directory before, like, how much do all of those thumbnails just blend together?
I have an ego. I think every streamer has an ego, but I don't often take credit for anything for any space, because most people have the same ideas. But if I do take credit for one thing, it's coming up with like the stock D&D show overlay on Twitch.
But there's
just
not
very
the
many
5
options.
cameras and
the 5 camera things with the logo in the center. Like, it's
that's not my overlay. My overlay is a little bit different. I do all the cameras at the bottom and the Roll20 window in the center.
Right. And I feel like for the longest time that's kind of all I saw. But
I like that people are
really
mixing
cool.
it up now.
They are. I think Roll20, I caught their Stream of Annihilation or Tomb of Annihilation show that happens on Fridays today, or a couple weeks back. They have a really slick looking overlay.
Right.
And that stuff is always super interesting to me, to just see what other people are doing. Because for the longest time, I'd open up a show and just be like, well, that's the roleplay overlay with just some different graphics changed out.
Right.
So that's like the one thing I will say that, or I will kind of have an ego about, is I feel like we kind of started that whole craze. But
you should have copyrighted it, man.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not going down that path. Streaming is just ripping off someone else's work, regardless.
I think we probably have time for like one more question before we wrap things up. We start kind of ending things here in just a little bit, but this one comes from Anarisis, who he says, says, as Twitch RPG shows move and more towards sweeping campaigns and meaningful narratives, what are some ways to make it easier for viewers to come in partway or to catch up on a show? Binging 50 or more episode RP shows is kind of a big barrier to entry. Yeah,
it's really awful. We haven't really found the answer to that. I think in a perfect world with unlimited resources, it would be to have a staffed editor chopping down 2-minute pieces of the previous week. And then have like, if someone doesn't want to watch that, then they want to watch like an intro to a show. It would be like a 5-minute piece saying like, this is what the show is about. These are the 4 characters. Here's a quick explanation of those 4 characters. And then they can watch that real quick on like a YouTube or something like that while the show's happening. I think that's probably the best way to do it.
You remember those little animated intros that they did for like all of the Acquisitions Incorporated shows?
Oh yeah. You know how expensive that shit is?
No, I'm saying like that's
stupid pricey. But that's the best way to do it. I agree.
But if you could send, in theory, if that was feasible, you could cut those animated like maybe couple like 30-second things together to do entire arcs, right?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. The animation stuff, they probably do it best, I think, than any other show right now. I don't know. Do they do that for the C Team stuff at the beginning, or is it only?
I don't have any time to watch the C Team.
Yeah, I don't either. Maybe someone check and see if they do or not. But yeah, for their live shows, they do a great job with those animated shorts. And that animation is it's still pricey, but the amount of like frames being animated in each scene are pretty low, so it's feasible to do. But it's a great way to engage someone in your content for the first time because it looks super professional and super well put together. And I think they've definitely got that kind of figured out for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know any other way to like actually catch someone up on back content without essentially like hyper chopping it down and and it wouldn't be interesting to just watch like a chop down of the actual tabletop view, like the stream view, right? That's why the animation is great, because it's like it's there. It's like animation makes your brain process things a little bit faster than just the audio.
Yeah. I would love to hire a full-time animator, but the thing with full-time animators is they go to school for animation and then get a job paying way too much money, or at least more money than I'm willing to pay someone right now to do such a thing. And it's because it's hard work, right?
They're in demand.
The animation stuff is in demand. It's very hard work, and it's just a lot of work as well to do. It takes a lot of time. So I think in a perfect world, I'd love to have that type of stuff on Roleplay, but we don't even. It's been 5 years and we don't even have a fucking intro. So I'm real far behind.
I have theme music for one show, and that cost me a bit of money. I mean, it was not the most expensive, but it was like it cost a little bit of money, and it's like I can't afford to do this for every show I produce. I just can't.
Yeah. For me, it just comes down to like finding the person to be able to do something like that that I trust to do. They got to be a fan of the show, right? Right. If they're not a fan of the show to begin with, then how do they know to make an intro? At that point, I'm just telling them what to make frame by frame, and I could probably go and learn how to do what they're doing somewhat and just do it myself. But it's so much time to do that in the first place. So I don't know. That's probably my one thing. If just a random question, the number one thing I would do to improve roleplay would probably just have a stock intro for every show.
Someone was talking about the wiki, like the wiki with stuff. That's fine if people are down to read. Not a lot of people are.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're listening to a podcast, you're probably not down to read much.
Yeah, we have we had a pretty up to date wiki on some of our other shows. But it's a lot of work just to do that stuff from a fan perspective. So it's a nice resource to have, though. I know Adam uses our wiki quite a lot. If there's a random thing that he needs to remember or something like that for a show, he'll go and look it up.
I think I would that'd be cool. I feel like I would be like, I'm too lazy to even get things uploaded to YouTube. Like I'd never remember to go to the wiki and type anything in there.
For me, it's all about it's all about like having a system that's as fast and to the point as possible, so there's like no wasted time. At least for me, that's the only way I'll get to do something. And constantly, it's like, oh, okay, I know how to do that really quickly. Let me take 5 minutes and do it real quick, like chopping MP3s from every episode, uploading them to YouTube, and all that stuff. There's just systems in place to where I can do it real quick.
Yeah, I fell out of the habit of that, and it's like I've lost it. It's gone. I'm so behind. I've lost so many VODs at this point.
Yeah. Workflow is super important for sure. And it's a learned skill.
Yeah.
It's not something that you're not inherently good at. You just got to figure out the best workflow for everyone.
That's actually, I guess as a last aside, do you think that not having your stuff on YouTube, like, and just gone, like, essentially disappearing on Twitch eventually, is like a huge shot in the foot?
Yes and no. We're kind of in a. I hate this question sometimes because I feel like such a spoiled brat. We're in a special situation where everything on my channel is evergreen. I have my very
Fair
first
enough.
VOD from 2012 or something like that. But that's just because I know people at Twitch and I got started
fair enough.
5 or 6 years ago. But and we upload most stuff on YouTube in terms of all our shows as well. But I think for a streamer such as yourself that doesn't have that luxury, I think it's definitely important if it's like a numbered show because people want to watch and see kind of sequential numbers. But I think it also, don't take this wrong way, but I think that if people look at that and they see like a VOD's missing, I know this happens to me all the time,
Yeah.
just because the amount of VODs that I'm dealing with. If people see there's a VOD missing from a playlist or something like that, I feel bad because that's a reflection on me
Right.
not doing a good job of trying to get as much
absolutely.
content out there, right? And so I strive to be able to get all that stuff out in a timely manner, and I always have ever since we started doing the first show, ArenaCast. Long ago, the VOD goes out that night or on whatever schedule we have it set so that people aren't waiting around for it. I think that's just an important thing that I've always kind of stuck by.
Well, I will absolutely make sure the VOD of this gets to YouTube.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be ironic if you wouldn't. If you
No,
did,
it's
that'd be great.
gone. Deleting for immediately.
Yeah.
No. Well, I think, man, that is probably where we're gonna have to wrap it up with the last question. Sorry, guys, if we did not get to all of your questions there. I know there are a whole bunch of in chat, but you know what that means? It just means we're gonna have to invite JP back in the future. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, let me know. We'll make it an annual thing or something like that. I'll love to come back.
Sure, man. Always. I will talk to your people. But before we go out of here, I mean, let's just do some real quick outro stuff and then some announcements. First of all, I want to give a big thank you to JP for hanging out with me, man. Thank you so much. I mean, I hope you had a good time. I know I certainly did.
Oh yeah. No, I love doing this stuff. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm sorry it took so long to finally come on
man.
and jump on the show.
It's awesome. And thank you everyone for joining us in chat. If you guys enjoyed this show, make sure you hit that follow button. And if you really enjoyed the show, either hit that subscribe button or the Patreon link. Before we wrap up with some announcements, do you want to, I mean, I'm sure we already know, but if you want to tell everyone where they can find you on the internet, what you're kind of getting up to, all that goodness.
Yeah, sure. Twitter.com/JP for any updates. Of course, Twitter.com/roleplay for any roleplay updates. Court of Swords, or rather Nebula Jazz, Mondays at 9 o'clock Eastern. Court of Swords at 6 o'clock Eastern. Drop Frames Wednesdays at 1 o'clock Eastern. Normal streams every day at 1 o'clock Eastern. And then Patreon.com/roleplay if you want to support us over on that front as well.
Awesome. Well, guys, make sure you go check him out on Twitch and Twitter. And, of course, thank him for being here. Show some love for JP and all the roleplay stuff. If this is your first time on the Exploding Dice channel, welcome. My name is Astrin. I am the host and the Dungeon Master here. Normally, we do this show. Fuzzy Dice is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. This is kind of a special case. But if you are joining us for the first time, what can you expect? Well, let me tell you a little bit about what we do here. I don't think we're going to have an episode tomorrow. We'll probably be doing some vodcasts because people are away for the holidays. But tomorrow, Saturdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, we do Writhing Moon, our open legend horror campaign. Talked a little bit about that during the show. It's fantastic. A ton of roleplay, horror, gore, mystery, all of that good stuff if you like it. Come check it out. It's really, really good. Then, of course, Sundays, we do the DMs table, which is a Dungeon Master round table with some of your favorite DMs on Twitch coming to hang out and just talk about the craft and take y'all to DM school. It's 4 p.m. Eastern here. And then 10 p.m. Eastern, we have The Dark Spring, our Mouse Guard campaign. It is a ton of fun. I am a player in that. That's, of course, me, Simply JXN, That Bronze Girl, and Drunkly Romantic in the player seat, and on the forefronts as the DM. And then Mondays, we don't have a show. I'm usually on someone else's channel. Tuesdays is Fuzzy Dice. Wednesdays, we have a show called The Daubers, which is a whimsical fantasy adventure where I play a rat named Fern who offers mushrooms to everyone.
Nice.
It's a ton of fun. We did a 3-episode miniseries, and the response was so good that we're bringing it back for a full show. And so you guys made that happen. Thank you so much for all of that support. Splattered Ink in chat. He is the DM for that. Of course, Thursday it's launching on the 30th. We have an all-female pirate campaign called The Razor Coast that's coming up very, very soon. Some awesome people in the cast there. It's the Great Haley, Novalessi, NPC Bree, Danny Imperial Scum, and Where's My Dingus? And then, of course, I'm the DM. So it's gonna be a ton of fun, guys. That's our week of roleplay. And then Thursdays that was Thursday. And then Friday we don't do anything usually. That's our roleplay content. It's all kinds of stuff, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And thank you guys. Thank you all the followers. I can't shout you all out just now, but you will get your love eventually. So before we bounce out of here, I want to pass the love on to my friend Arvin Elron. I'm actually going to be swinging over to his stream. He's doing a DM talk show,
Nice.
and I am supposed to be over there in like now. So we're gonna pass the love on to him. He's hanging out with my friend Eric Vulgaris, and I'm gonna jump by. I'm gonna send you guys to him, and then I will be popping on that show in just a bit. But thank
Awesome.
you guys. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for watching. Let me kick off that raid thing. What is it?
Oh yeah, you
Exclamation
gotta rate him, man.
Yeah, / let me first of all raid Arvin Elron so you can get the command, and then / raid Arvin Elron. There we go, guys. The raid, there was a problem raiding Arvin Elron. Please try again in a minute. What is this?
It froze my chat. It like ended the chat.
What?
What in the world? You
What?
broke Twitch.
Did I do it? Hold on.
Try again. Try again.
Let's raid Arvin Elron. There was a problem starting the raid. Please start again in a minute.
Huh.
Maybe he can't get raided?
I think anyone can get rated though, right?
Nope, it keeps saying there's a problem. Oh well, we'll do it manually. We'll do it the
Yeah,
old-fashioned way, guys.
Just toast him. Fuck this whole raid business.
We're gonna drop the host. That's it for us, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. We will see you next time. But as always, don't let Dice Thulu get his tentacles on you, because he might, or he gets very handsy when he does. We'll see you next time, guys. Take care, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye bye.